Let's talk about how to bust through the overwhelm and decision fatigue, and I want to walk you through my step-by-step framework in terms of exactly how I plan the ingredients for a bridal bouquet and doing it in a way that allows me to create the work that I know is going to look good, that will make my customers happy, but also ensures profitability with every single design. And one of the things that I really used to struggle with as a creative and business owner is decision fatigue and overwhelm. And I have a hard enough time trying to figure out what's for dinner that standing in the wholesalers trying to figure out what ingredients to put into a design would just zap my energy and my creativity. And what would inevitably almost always happen, I would panic buy. So I would spend too much at the wholesalers because I had no plan going in, but also I'd be standing there at my workbench just not sure where to start. And I would be spending hours creating a design that ultimately I didn't really like. And once I realized that I could find a different way to do this, that I could focus on putting in place a very simple structure that would help me know exactly what ingredients to buy from the growers and wholesalers, how much to buy from the growers and wholesalers, but also makes it so much easier for you to be able to show up, enjoy the design process, or even hire a freelancer to create the bouquet for you, and it's still going to meet your expectation. And I think this is one of, let's be honest, it's one of the many topics that's never talked about in commercial floristry, but it's definitely one of the pieces of the puzzle that for me has made floristry so much more fun and really getting back into enjoying the design and the creative process. So I thought it might be super helpful to just go through my process. There are no spreadsheets, no apps, no software. You can do this with pen and paper, but also you can take this framework, and if you do use every stem, if you use a spreadsheet, if you use something else, take this framework and try it out for yourself. Just also know you've got my complete permission to take this, take this framework, adapt it, change it, use it as is, adjust it, and let it know. It's just been one of the things that's really been so incredibly helpful for me in my own floristry career. And I just keep coming back to the fact that I love this so much, and it's been such an incredible way to almost guarantee that I love every single bouquet that I make every time that I follow this structure. Also, don't feel like that you have to be super intimidated by structure, framework, blueprint, protocol. I want you to think of this as general guidelines to help you not be so overwhelmed when you're planning your ingredients or figuring out what to buy at the wholesalers, or in that ultimate decision when we show up at the wholesalers and they're like, yeah, sorry, I know that you ordered quicksand roses, but we didn't get any in. And in your brain, you're like, oh my God, I need to make a swap. What do I do? Panic, panic, panic. We've all been there. We've all done that. So that's one of the reasons that I love this framework, is that it helps you set yourself up for when that happens, instead of hoping that that's not going to happen, because that always happens. So the very first thing that I figured out, and this was after years, years, we'll skip past the years of frustration and angst and not loving the work I was creating. So the part that was really helpful for me was figuring out how many stems do I need to put into a bridal bouquet to create the look, the feel, the aesthetic, the fullness that I know that I want in terms of meeting my customers' expectations, and in terms of Kathleen being able to create the work that I want to create. So after quite a bit of reverse engineering and trial and error, 35 is my magic number. So if anybody ever asks me how many stems go into a bridal bouquet, I'm always going to tell you 35. Now my number and your number might be different based on your aesthetic and the overall impact that you want to create with your wedding bouquets or bridal bouquets, but I just love the fullness of a beautiful, lush bridal bouquet. So 35 has been my number for years. So that's the first place to begin, is figuring out how many stems do you want to put into a bridal bouquet to create the aesthetic that you want. From there, I knew that I needed a way to figure out, okay, well, I know it's 35 stems, but what can I do to help make the planning, recipe, product ordering, wholesale buy process way easier on myself? And that's when I started to realize, okay, there's some recurring themes in terms of the bouquets in my head that are the most memorable. So this is when I sat down and I just pulled out photos of the designs and the bouquets that I was like, these are probably my top 3 that stick in my head of like the most enjoyable to make. I loved the ingredient selection and I really liked the combination of textures and like just the contrast of focal flowers to filler ingredients. So that's when I landed on this idea of Kathleen likes to have 7 different ingredients in her design. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you'll know that that's my magic number. If you haven't, welcome. So 7 is my magic number in terms of how many different ingredients I like to include in a design. The other thing that I don't do, and this is a unique Kathleen thing as compared to other designers, but I don't separate between flowers and foliage. So I don't delineate between having 7 flowers and then there's foliage on top. I just decide there's 7 ingredients in total. And then the place I will always begin is if I know that I'm going to have 35 stems in my bouquet, I'm going to assume 5 stems of each of those 7 ingredients. And if you do the math, then you know that 7 times 5 is 35. So that I know every single time that I'm sitting down to plan out flowers for a wedding, every single time that I'm creating a wedding bouquet, I need to figure out what 7 ingredients I want to use in that design. And then I'm going to, by default, assume that there's going to be 5 ingredients in each. In most cases as well, you're actually going to be designing a wedding bouquet, a bridal bouquet in the context of other wedding flowers. So you're going to have centerpieces, flower crowns, bridesmaids. You might even have archways, cake flowers, bar arrangements, ceremony features. You might have all of the things. And that's actually what makes this framework so powerful, is you can take this framework and apply it to every single item that you have as a designer, figure out what you want your total wholesale order to be, and then that actually allows you so much creativity and flexibility on the day when you're making the design. Because if you're designing a bouquet and in the middle of it, you're realizing, you know what, I actually want to have more quicksand roses than just those 5, you can do that. So you can put in more than 5 of those quicksand roses in that design. In that instance, I would actually decrease the number of stems in some other ingredient. So let's go through a very real example. And in this particular instance, I created a design that had mums, roses, dahlias, Queen Anne's lace, tea tree, kangaroo paw, and yarrow. So that when I'm standing at the wholesaler, I know, okay, so I need to find 7 different ingredients. And in this particular case, I also know that for me, it's 3 focal flowers and then 4 filler ingredients. So with this one particular design, I actually decided pretty early on that I knew I only wanted to have 5 mums in it, because it gets really big and bulky and unwieldy, and more than 3 mums in a design, because they just like to take up so much space. So I knew in this instance, I was going to decrease the number of mums in this design and then increase the number of dahlias, because it's dahlia season and who doesn't want to use all the dahlias all the time? So that's what I did. But in all the other instances, I just stuck with the 5 number, knowing that if you're designing this across an entire wedding, you're then going to have a handful of fewer dahlias that you might use in your centerpieces or your bridesmaids bouquets, and you're going to have a few extra mums. So it all balances itself out. Now, if you're the type of designer that loves recipes and you love extreme structure, take this 7x5 framework and then just apply it to every design item on your own flower menu. But if you also like that kind of gray area of a little bit of in-between space and you want some flexibility in terms of not everything's going to be cookie cuttered, but it is all going to look like a family, then you could just take this 7x5 framework and apply it across a handful of the items. So you can go as deep with the 7x5 framework as you want to. Also, if you like more different textures, if you want more than 7 ingredients in a design, or you want less than 7 ingredients in your designs, just adjust this structure as you like. The thing that really made this so much easier for me was figuring out how many stems do I need to put in a bridal bouquet to make the impact that I want to create, then how many different ingredients do I need to use to create the aesthetic that I want to create. Answering those 2 questions for yourself will then make the rest of it so much easier. For this particular design as well, I will throw the final recipe and stem count up on the screen. Feel free to screenshot it and just use it as an example if you're trying to figure out this framework for your own business. And if you're curious about how I price wedding flowers, be sure to watch this video where I go through my streamlined approach to pricing. I talk through how to mark up and account for flowers, all of your ingredients, your hard goods and your sundries and your labor. And I just walk you through everything step by step so that it's as simple and you can feel as confident as possible. And I hope that this has been helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.